All right, Michael, what's the fear from the league if the players do communicate and want to team up? What's the worst case scenario?
Well, Maggie, for a player, it would be a $50,000 fine. That's the maximum penalty under Article 35 of the Constitution. But a team or a general manager can get in a lot more trouble. A team could lose draft picks. A team could have to transfer draft picks to the team that had been the victim of tampering. A team can also be fined much more substantially than a player. So the penalty scheme is directed mainly towards teams rather than players, but players can get punished. We haven't seen a player punished, although Will Perdue, a player on the Bulls back in 1999, was admonished by the NBA over comments he made. But it's an interesting issue in this era of virtual communications. What's tampering and what's recruiting?
I guess philosophically, what do they think? What is the NBA is worried will change if players do communicate with each other and want to circumvent certain rules to try to have more, have more of a say of where they play and who they play with?
Yeah, I think the greatest fear for the NBA is that it would affect the way players play. That if they're conspiring, and I use that word loosely, if they're conspiring to play with each other before they join up, is that affecting how they compete against one another? Does it affect their interest in remaining with the team? Does it prevent an existing team from having a real shot of negotiating a contract with the player? Those types of issues, I think, worry the NBA, that there's some kind of non-competitive activity, that players are working together rather than against one another, as they should be as opponents.
Now, Josh Jackson refused to work out for the Celtics because the Phoenix Suns, who were picking one spot below Boston, may have promised to draft Jackson. Why is that not considered tampering?
Yeah, I mean, it's not tampering in a technical sense because Jackson wasn't yet a member of any NBA team. He wasn't under contract to any team. And a team can make an oral promise. We've seen it in the past with other players. But it certainly could be considered some kind of interference. I mean, in law, we say tortious interference, that the Suns are preventing the Celtics or disrupting their capacity to negotiate with Josh Jackson. Now, the Suns would likely reply by saying, well, wait a second, it's up to the player to decide whether or not to cancel a workout. That's between Josh Jackson and the Boston Celtics. And moreover, the Celtics still could have drafted Josh Jackson. That nothing stopped the Celtics from drafting him. Jackson, from what we can tell, made a decision that he would get a lot more playing time in Phoenix than going to Boston, where he'd be behind Jay Crowder, Al Horford, that it would be a harder matchup for him in terms of playing time. But it is an issue for the NBA, and it's going to be an issue possibly for the Celtics again next year. They have the Nets pick, which will likely be a high pick. So they could be in the same boat where some players don't want to work out with the Celtics because they worry about playing time and how that could affect their second contract.
Yeah, because it's really unusual that we have a team that is going to the Eastern Conference Finals also picking so high in the draft. It's just that Danny Ainge has worked this to perfection. I guess final one for you. A lot of this comes from Lee Jenkins' article about Draymond Green texting Kevin Durant after losing Game 7 a year ago saying, we need you, we want you, please come with us. Michael, do you think Draymond Green is going to hear from the commissioner's office about this?
If he gets anything, he may just get a light warning saying, please be mindful of what you're texting, or moreover, please be mindful of what you're talking to media about. I mean, this was something that he volunteered from what we can tell. And I think the NBA, and probably the Players Association too, would want to warn players that before they divulge the contents of their communications to members of the media, they should think about consequences. They should think about how it could look and the fact that there is a tampering rule in place. Now, look, we've seen players do this all the time. Isaiah Thomas goes to the All-Star game and talks about recruiting other players, and nobody seems to view that as wrong, but you'd have to think the NBA, if it's thinking about its tampering rules, would at least think, maybe this is something players shouldn't be so open about.